In honor of tax time, let's talk about Raise the Dead. Welcome to my channel. I focus on tabletop role-playing games, video games, and science fiction. Maybe I'm a bit sanguine about Raising the Dead and tax time this year. For those of you who don't know, about 16 months ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. So, if you even less aware of what that means is that 89% of the people diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer die within 5 years. So I was a little bit sanguine, and I decided why not, and so I tapped into my 401k, which and spent some money on some things like, for example, this office and a few things that I wanted because I didn't think I was going to survive. But I am now one of the very lucky 9% that of stage 4 colon cancer patients who ever have a clear CT. I've had 2 now in a row. So I'm very lucky. I will probably survive, but it makes me think about death and think about taxes, because last year about this time I was thinking I was probably going to be checking out soon. Now I think I may last a few more months at least, hopefully a few more years. But it gets me thinking about death and taxes, because there were a couple of posts in the RPG Brigade on Facebook. So what is different from my recollection and some of the other people, and I think it's because I'm as the saying goes, I'm a grognard. I started with original Dungeons and Dragons, and I still remember how the rules affected me. So first off, let's take a look at a quote from Men in Magic. And so this one, it says, the cleric simply points his finger, utters the incantation, and the dead person is raised. We'll skip over a little bit of this about who you can raise and how long they can do it. It says, naturally, if the character's constitution was weak, the spell will not bring him back to life. In any event, raised characters must spend 2 game weeks recuperating from the ordeal. Now this brings up something that was in original Dungeons and Dragons, 1st edition and 2nd edition, which when I checked, it appears to have been removed from 3rd, and it's not in 4th or 5th, which is the Constitution saves. And this chart here is from Greyhawk. Now, a Constitution save was required for 2 things: resurrection / raise dead, and polymorph. If somebody cast a polymorph spell on you, when you could resist and you failed the saving throw, you were polymorphed. But when you were turned back, that required a save because it was a constitution shock. Did you survive the transmutation back? That's one thing. The other thing that it was used for, the Constitution save was used for, was raise from the dead or resurrection. You had a chance that the resurrection spell failed, which actually then did something else that was interesting. Was your resurrection dropped your Constitution. Every time you were raised or resurrected, your Constitution dropped by 1. So there was that. I actually remember running a game where we were playing this. I think it was probably 1st edition, and somebody cast the raise spell knowing that the person's Constitution was going to drop, and they failed the resurrection check. So they cast the raise again, and they managed to survive that one, but they lost 2 points of Constitution. So it became important to remember how many times you could your Constitution could be raised. Actually, when I was looking through this, 2nd edition actually put a further caveat that you could never be raised more than 15 times. Sort of reminds me of Doctor Who, where you can only be changed, what is it, 12 times or something like that, and that's why the Master. I am not I've watched some of Doctor Who, so, but I am not really I'm not really a deep Who fan. I watched some of it. It was always sort of the tongue in cheek. But it brings up the interesting concept of that you have to have some ramifications from raising the dead. So, for me, the raising the dead, the problem was that I'm going to survive was that, yes, the IRS, as the saying goes, bent me over and had its way with me. Yes, and I'm sore from that because because I pulled some money out of my 401k. It bumped me a tax. I thought I held out enough money, and of course I didn't, and because it raised my tax bracket. So yes, so I got really hit bad with taxes this year, and no penalties, but just. Yeah, so raising the dead now brings an interesting question. You could, interestingly, in your campaign, you could add a tax on raising the dead. And I've talked about, a good villain where they go around and resurrect those who are dead. But you could introduce a taxation for raising the dead. Or actually, the one that was insane, I remember this happened. I grew up in Utah, and they had an interesting law on the books, which was showy with regard to cars, and that was that you had to always keep your car. You had to always be current on your taxes on your car. You had your property tax on your car, but the statement was if you ever lapsed on paying taxes and you tried to come back and get it licensed, you had to pay all the back taxes on it. The assumption was the car was there. And I remember there was the case that was winding its way through the courts. This someone had found out in a garage, not a garage, a shed, or somebody had an old Model T Ford, and they bought it and drug it, paid the guy for the Model T, brought it, and then lovingly restored it, and then goes and tries to get licenses for it. And they says, oh, but you have to pay you have to pay for the licenses for all the previous years. And he goes, it was in somebody's shed for, all these years. And they go, doesn't matter. That's the way the law reads. You have to pay all the back taxes on it. Yeah, there are things like that. And so what happens is you could do the raise the dead. You could say, oh, the person has to pay their back taxes. So you can get some interesting things like that if you want to get into this. So what is your experience with death and taxes? This happened all around Easter, which made life, it's an interesting coming together of various things, Easter and tax season. Yeah, they don't fit well. As the saying goes, there's nothing sure but death and taxes. But death doesn't come annually. Happy tax day to all of those who are watching this when I first released this when my taxes were due. Yes, I paid them. I owed a lot of money, and I paid my taxes the day before they were due. Yes, because I had to come up with the money. But so yes, don't get on me about not paying my taxes sooner. But the other thing is have you, what have you done about raising the dead? What have your characters, quote, abused this spell? Take a look at some of the ideas back from the second edition and first edition and original Dungeons and Dragons, and they would make handy house rules. I sort of like the idea if you raise somebody from the dead, they are back at 1 hit point, but they're so weak that it's going to take them 2 game weeks to recover where they can do anything. And the other thing I would put on there is that nothing short of a wish would give them additional hit points back, because it has to come back naturally from the raised dead. And the resurrect, you could go, okay, they're at 1 hit point and they can walk around. Well, but it's sort of, the resurrect is such a higher level spell that, okay, I guess you would give them all of their hit points back for a resurrection. That's an interesting one. But the other question is do you want to like polymorph others, where you polymorph somebody into something else, and then when they revert, do they need to take a system shock? That's back in the original Dungeons & Dragons 1st edition and 2nd edition. But they took it out in 3rd edition. At least I didn't see it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But have you done any of those? I'd like to hear your comments. Thank you for watching my video. I look forward to learning what you think about this video. Let me know in the comments below. I appreciate all your comments. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give me a thumbs down. I appreciate both forms of feedback. If you're new here and would like to subscribe, you can click on the icon on the left. If you're interested, there's more content on the right.